Sarah. Thank you very much, Sarah, for coming to talk to us. And it's a pleasure to have you. We're very glad to have you here. Sarah is originally from France. She began her career as a software engineer in the media publishing industry, and then she transitioned to technology training and curriculum development. She has been working as a software engineer training for 3 years. She's helping aspiring developers land their first roles in tech. She's passionate about guiding others in tech journeys, and she continues to teach online tutoring platforms like Preply. Welcome, and the floor is yours. I'll stop sharing my screen, and thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you, Anna. Hi, everyone. Really nice to see there's so many people from like different places and countries. I can also recognize some faces and names. So thank you for being here if I know you and supporting me. What I'll do is I'm going to share my screen. I've got a whole presentation for you. I do want to say, if you have questions along the way, like post them in the chat. Raise your hand, be as interactive as possible and engaging as possible. And I will do questions at the end as well. So if I don't see your question, don't worry, I will tackle them at the end. And then second thing I would say is, yeah, I hope you enjoy this. Let's get started. So, let me get this up. Here we go. Can I just double check that everyone is able to see my screen? Thumbs up. Yeah, nice. Okay. All right. So, I'm really excited to be here today because this is a topic that's very close to my heart. I've mentored and helped people prepare for technical interviews for a while now. And so I've seen, firsthand how the right strategies can help anyone kind of walk into an interview and be successful. So my goal today is to share what I've learned with you so that you can walk to your next interview feeling more confident, feeling more prepared. The anxiety, I'm going to be honest with you, will always be there. But the secret is to embrace that anxiety, to be able to reduce it, and to, slowly, slowly be able to kind of grow that confidence that is inside all of us. Okay. So I still get nervous when I do interviews, but I'm way less nervous than I was when I first started. And so that's all thanks to all the kind of strategies and tips that I implemented in my life and that I got from mentors and other people. So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. Let's be real. Technical interviews can be stressful. I've been through it myself. And, that feeling of sitting in front of a blank coding editor, not knowing what to do, or getting like a really hard question and you're not sure of the answer. We've all been there. Okay. So what I would like us to do is for everyone, to drop in the chat. Here you go. It's going to get deep. What is your biggest fear about technical interviews? Or what is something that you like to improve? Okay. If either question, you can answer either question or both. Doesn't have to be a long paragraph, just a word or a sentence can do. But basically, tell me in the chat, what is your biggest fear? Or what is something that you like to improve in interviews? And I'll start with sharing mine, so we have something to go with. Okay, so we've got improve confidence. I've just posted mine, which is my improve my ability to take feedback. Okay, fear not communicating well, tripping on my own words, blanking on a question, to forget the basic things I know, coding in front of people I don't know is scary. Yeah, I've been there. My mind going blank from stress, blanking out. Okay, there's a lot of blanking in there, which is completely relatable. So thank you everyone for sharing. So I can relate to all of this, by the way. And the reason I wanted to do this exercise is because I want you to see that you're not alone in feeling this way, okay? Everyone, even the most experienced engineers, has been in your shoes at some point and has felt like you have felt at some point and probably still do, sometimes. So when you realize that, it's going to make the whole process feel a little less intimidating. And what I've done is I've actually put together some common thoughts or statements that, you know, I've had people say to me. Some of my students have said this to me. I thought these myself. And I've just seen these thoughts a lot around me. So you've probably had these thoughts yourself, or you probably heard them from someone else. And this is really to show you that, like, again, even the most experienced engineers have had these thoughts. So the key isn't to eliminate these thoughts, okay? Because it's really hard to eliminate these thoughts, to be honest with you. The key is to shift your mindset and handle them effectively, okay? So what I'm going to be showing you in this session is techniques, tips, strategies to boost your confidence, to prep yourself better for the interview, and to reframe your perspective on interviews. Okay, that's the most important thing. If you have a shift in your mind in the way you see an interview, you're going to get in there with a much better state of mind. Okay, so that's the key. And hopefully that will reduce some of these thoughts for you, or it will, you will make sure that you don't have them, as often as you used to. So what's the agenda? We are going to look at the different interview formats and what to expect in each of these formats. We are going to look at some strategy to prep you efficiently. Part of that is, how to structure your answers, how to think like an interviewer. And then finally, we are going to look at some confidence building techniques to handle some situations where you might be anxious before an interview, or you're getting those rejections that, are very known of everyone. Like getting rejection after rejection is not easy. So how do you deal with that? Okay. So that's the agenda. Let's start with, therefore, the interview formats. So on here, I have got 6 common formats of, interviews that you may have going into a technical role. The reason why there's all these formats is because companies will want to assess a variety of skills. When you go for a technical role, it's not just about assessing your technical knowledge. It's also about assessing how you communicate, how you problem solve, how you handle stressful situations. So there's a lot of like behavioral elements as well. And that is why it's not just technical. And these are the most common that you might get when you go in a role. So my advice is to always ask the interview format in advance. Okay, you are entitled to do that. You can ask the format, you can ask, what are the details so that you can prepare accordingly. And if they don't give you that information, well, it's on them, okay? Because you should be able to have that information to prepare yourself. So let's go through each of them. First one, we have live coding challenges. So this is about solving a problem. You're being given a coding problem and you have to solve it in real time, usually with someone watching you. Yes, terrifying, I know. But there are ways to, make this fun. I know. People are like, Sarah, it's not fun, this. Trust me, it can be fun. So this is essentially the live coding challenge. And it's all about your thought process and it's all about how you problem solve, as we're going to see later. Then we have the technical Q&A. So this is basically answering direct technical questions about, programming concepts, algorithms, technologies. And this can depend on, depending on the role that you go for. If you go for a front-end role, you're going to get very different questions than if you go for a full stack role or a backend role, etc. Okay. And then we have system design. So this one, I'm not going to dive too much into this because I would say this is for experienced role mostly. Like this is something you would get if you get to senior level and you're interviewing for senior positions. You might get some system design questions. And this is all around basically asking the candidate, how would you build this application at scale? And how would you make sure that, it's designed well, so that it's performant and all of that. So we're talking high level kind of technical knowledge here. So, happy to talk about this to you one-on-one if you're interested. But I've kind of based this session around the fact that most of you are either entry level or mid-level or, in between. Okay, so I'm not going to dive too much into this one. Then we have a take-home assignment. So this is basically you given a coding task, an assignment, a project to do at home. Usually you have a few days. They give you a deadline. People prefer this one for obvious reasons, but I would say they are the ones that a lot of the times ask you more effort because you have a lot of time to do it. So you're going to have to build something bigger. Okay. So it's not always, I don't know, as fun as we may think. And then we have number 5 and 6. These are the less technical formats of all of this, but they matter just as much, if not more. Okay, like this is something I really want to highlight. Scenario-based questions or behavioral questions are so important to prepare for, and they will make the difference into whether you be a good candidate for the job or not. So I'm going to focus on those a lot. Scenario-based means someone gives you a scenario and you have to tell them how you would handle the scenario. The scenario might be technical or non-technical. So you might get a question like, hey, like there's this bug that we found in this project. Obviously, they're going to be more detailed than this. They're going to explain you the bug. They're going to explain you what the project is. And then they might ask you, how would you handle this? What would be the steps that you would take? That is what I would consider technical. Non-technical might be you're working on a project with a teammate and they just push their code and you have to review their code, but the code isn't like exactly what is needed. How would you handle that feedback? How would you give that feedback to your teammate? So that is what I would call a non-technical scenario-based question, okay? And then behavioral question is all around your past experiences. Sorry, your past experiences, your communication skills, your leadership skills. So it might be, tell me about a time you faced a challenge. Tell me about a time you worked in a team and faced a conflict. How did you handle that? That kind of question, okay? So these are the six formats. And like I said, because of the limited time, I'm going to focus on number 1, 2, 5, and 6. Okay, so live coding, technical Q&A, scenario-based, and behavioral. The reason being that, like I said, system design is more for experienced, senior roles. Take-home assignment is something that is a bit more straightforward in terms of prep, and it's something that you have more time, for. You don't necessarily need to prep in advance. So these 4 are the ones that I will focus on. So we'll start with live coding, probably the most hated type of interview format among a lot of people, okay? And I get that, it's stressful. This one really is, you get given a coding problem and you have to solve it in real time, usually in a shared editor, in a shared coding environment. The reason being that you're going to be facing someone, like an interviewer, who is going to be essentially observing your code and collaborating with you. Emphasis on collaboration, okay? A lot of the times, these are pair programming, meaning that you are the one driving the conversation, you are the one coding. However, the person in front of you will basically collaborate, guide you, potentially tell you where you're going wrong. They're there to help you, okay? And this is where you really need to understand that it is not a test. It is supposed to be a collaborative kind of, two-person conversation. And that's where a lot of people, go wrong, is that they treat it as a test, but really they should treat it as a conversation with someone and be able to learn from that person. So that is why you do it in a shared editor, so that they can help you, they can collaborate, and they can, see your code. In terms of the skills assessed, again, this is not just a test of your coding. This is a test of how you think, how you communicate, and how you problem solve. Okay. They obviously are going to look at your code a little bit, but really the main focus here is evaluating how you approach a problem rather than getting the perfect syntax. Okay. Like, how do you talk about code? How do you communicate through your problem solving? That is really what they're going to care about. Think about this way. It's not about proving that 2 + 2 = 4. It's about proving, it's about showing how you got to 4. Okay. It's about showing, the process of figuring out that 2 + 2 = 4. That's really the key of this kind of challenge. Time-wise, it's going to be between 30 to 45 minutes. I say this, but I had once one of those to like an hour and a half. It was truly a nightmare. So don't recommend that, but usually it's under an hour. So that's kind of like the typical timing for that. So what should you do, and what should you do, sorry, and what should you not do? Starting with the don't, okay? This is the biggest mistake that candidates make with this format, jumping straight into coding. If you rush straight into coding, you're probably not giving yourself the time to think, to potentially think of the best solution here, the best approach. And for the person in front of you, they're going to be like, wait a minute, I don't know what you're thinking right now. What is your reasoning? What is the solution you're going for? So if you jump straight into coding, that's not going to help you. Instead, you want to really outline your approach and your solution to the person in front of you, and then go into the coding part, because that's not what you would do in a work setting, right? If you get a project given to you, if you get a problem given to you, you're not going to jump straight into coding. I mean, some people do, but I never recommend that, because you don't have the time to properly think. Okay, so you want to do the same in an interview. One of the ways to do that is using something called pseudocode. Okay, for anyone that doesn't know what pseudocode is the act of basically writing your solution in plain English before you go into code. Okay, and that's an exercise that you should get into the habit of, because what it does is that it helps you break down the problem step by step, and it also puts the focus on the logic first. So you're going to worry about the logic first. You're going to be like, okay, how do I figure this out in English? Don't worry about the syntax. Don't worry about the code. Okay. Once you figure out the logic and you've written down the steps in English, that's when you're going to be, okay, how do I then put that into code? And that's the moment you're going to worry about the syntax. So that way you're separating the logic and the syntax, which is how coding should be. Okay. So that's the idea. The other thing that pseudocode will do is that for the interviewer, they're going to be like, oh, I understand your reasoning. You've just outline it for me, and I know what you think. I'm in your brain, and I know how you problem solve. Okay, so that's what pseudocode is going to do. I'm going to show you a little demo on that in a minute. Okay. What else should you not do? Stay silent. If you stay silent, the person in front of you will not know what you're thinking, will not know if you're struggling, will not know how you problem solve and how you communicate. So instead, you want to think and debug aloud. Okay, so you really want to like let the interviewer in your brain, even if you're saying stuff that is, like wrong or that doesn't make sense. Like, at least you're kind of giving your thoughts, and they can help you make sense of whatever you're saying. So that's the idea. You want to treat the interview like a conversation, and you want to make sure that you are talking through your reasoning as if you're talking to a teammate or, yourself or a friend. And that's going to help the interviewer get in your head, but it's also going to help you. The number of times I've seen students be like, I don't know, I'm stuck. And then I'm like, okay, explain the problem to me out loud. They explain the problem to me out loud. Halfway through, they're like, oh, I know the solution, Sarah. So you figure this out when you're speaking about the problem out loud. Okay. This is called, there's a term for it. It has a duck in it. Like Robert, I don't remember, but it's like talking to your duck or something like that. And it's about debugging out loud. Okay. And that's really a key element. I think someone posted in chat. Yes, thank you, Jamie. Rubber ducking, exactly. So that's the idea, okay? You want to essentially use that method. Third, don't make assumptions. If something is not clear, if something, you feel like you've misunderstood, an element of it, please ask questions. Don't make assumptions on what is needed, what the interviewer wants. Questions that seem to be negative, but they're not. They show you critical thinking. They show that you're willing to succeed. They show that you're not just kind of going with the flow, and you're trying to really understand the task that's at hand. So ask questions as much as possible. And then finally, do not focus too much on the syntax. Like, yes, it's important to get your syntax right, but that should come after, right? Focus on the correct solution first and your reasoning, and then you can optimize after. You can, go back to the code and be like, oh, I would do this, or I would remove that, I would refine it that way so that it's more readable, etc., etc. So that's the idea, okay? So before I go on, let me just give you an example of the pseudocode that I was talking about. So let's just say that you get given a problem. I'm gonna go with a very simple problem here. And the problem is, let me just create a file. The problem is, here we go. The problem is, given an array of numbers, return the largest number. Okay, great. So you get this problem given to you. Here is the wrong approach. Okay, I'm not talking, I'm just coding. Okay. If I do this, the interviewer has no idea what I'm thinking. And to be honest, it's quite boring for both of us, okay, to just stay in silence. What would be a better approach? Okay. Right, so I think I would create a variable where I would store my max number. I think I would probably set it to 0 first. And then I'm guessing, because we're dealing with an array, we probably need a loop. So I'm going to go ahead and loop through the array. Okay, this is better. I'm talking, I'm explaining what I'm doing. However, I'm not explaining my reasoning. Why am I choosing this kind of loop? Why am I storing the max number in a variable? What is my kind of approach looking forward? Okay, like the why behind is not being explained in this instance. So let's take it to the right approach. You get this given to you. Okay. Step one, I'm going to think aloud. Okay, so if we're dealing with an array, I'm guessing we probably need a loop. Okay. And then I probably want to store my number in a variable so that I can then update it later on. This is you thinking aloud, okay? To kind of start to clarify the question to yourself and to show the interviewer that you are, trying to clarify the question for yourself as well. Now, this is where you move to pseudocode. Okay, so if it's okay with you, I'm just going to write some pseudocode to kind of think about the solution here, and then I'll move on to the code. Great. Okay, pseudocode. Okay, so I think if the array, well, actually, so start by assuming that the first number is the largest, and then loop through the array and update the max whenever a bigger number is found. Okay. And then maybe I would return the largest number at the end. Okay, this is pseudocode because you are writing your solution in English. Okay, step by step. Now, at this point, you would be like, okay, what do you think of this approach to the person interviewing you? Anything that I've missed? The person might be like, oh, have you thought about the array being empty? What happens if the array is empty? Oh, yeah, you're right. That's probably something I should think about. Let me add it to my pseudocode. So, oops, don't do that. Don't delete your thing. Okay, so if the array is empty, maybe I return no. Is that, yeah, that's right? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the code. At this point, it's going to be super easy to move on to the code. Why? Because you've put the steps, you know exactly what you need to do. Not only that, if you can, in the pseudocode, use words that are code words, for example, if is a code word, loop is a code word, you know exactly what that represents in code. You're like, okay, I need to do an if statement. I need to do a loop. Oh, return, that's another code word. I need to return something. Okay. So the more code words you can use in your pseudocode, the better, because then you're going to be able to switch to the coding part very easily. Okay, and then you're going to move to the coding part. You're going to write your stuff. There may be mistakes. You're refining, you're optimizing, you're asking questions. Again, take this as a collaborative thing. What do you think? Where should I, is there something here that I should optimize? Ask questions. Oh, I think I should do this. Do you think that's right? So that's how really the conversation should go. Okay. Before I move on, I'm just seeing the comments. And then one thing here that's really important is to, in your pseudocode, you may want to, when you're thinking out loud, you may want to basically think about the different approaches. You may want to talk about this. You may want to say, well, I could do it this way, and I could do it this way, and I could do it this other way. Okay, so these are your edge cases. And here's where you want to be. But I think I might go with this solution because of X and Y. That way you are showing your critical thinking, you are showing your decision making. Okay, so that's an approach that is sometimes really helpful depending on the problem that you're going to get. Great. Okay, so that's for live coding. So let me just go back here. Here we go. Oops. Okay, so that's for the live coding, and I'll share some more tips later on. Then we have technical Q&A. Okay, so this is, like I said, around direct technical questions asked to you. Depends of the role you're going for. If you're going for a front-end role, you might get question around JavaScript, the DOM, or like any framework that is being used by the company, for example, React. If you're going for a backend, you might get questions about APIs. What is a server? How does the communication work, et cetera, et cetera. So the questions will differ. What is not going to differ is the type of questions, because you might get conceptual questions or process-based. Conceptual is going to be anything like explaining a concept. So what is an API? What is event delegation in JavaScript? Okay. Process-based might be, okay, you have this input field where users type their name, and how would you prevent them from submitting the form if, they leave it empty? That is a process-based, because you're talking about an actual like step-by-step process here that you would take. Okay. And again, what's the mindset to have here with these? It's not about you memorizing textbook definition. Okay, if you like just recite a definition you've seen online or that you've prepared in your head, it is just not going to do it. Okay, here you want to go like way further in your explanation. You want to make sure that you really understand the why behind a concept, that you can properly give the why, that you can give the different use cases, and that you can also give a real world example. If you can relate it to an example, either that you built yourself or just a general example, that's even better, because you are showing that you're really understanding it in a practical way. Okay. If we take the example of the question, what is event delegation in JavaScript? You could just say, well, it's when an event is handled by a parent element instead of its child, and stop here. And that's your definition. Okay. If you were to go further, you're going to be, okay, why is event delegation important? Give a real world example. Give a project you worked on where you implemented event delegation, or give an example on where it would be useful. So give the different use cases of where you would use it. Okay, so this is going beyond the simple definition. So really, this one is not knowing. It's not just saying what it is, it's saying why and how to use it. Okay. So in terms of do's and don'ts, it's basically all around that, because It's not about memorizing answers, it's understanding the why behind the concept. And a very good tip I have for this is to pretend you are teaching someone that is a beginner or someone that doesn't know about whatever you're talking about. Okay. The moment I became an educator in my life is the moment I really understood what the hell I was doing. When I was a coder, I was just copy pasting, just coding things because, I was told it was that way. When I became an educator, I was forced to break down the concept and to be like, oh, this is why we're doing this. And this is where you want to get. And to get there, you can practice teaching a concept to someone. It can be your friend, it can be yourself, you can record yourself, it can be a mentor, etc. And that's going to help you massively in understanding something like to that level. Okay. So that's my first tip. Second is to, like I said, do not give one word answer. You want to really expand. You want to connect it to practical applications. So for example, if you're discussing CSS Flexbox, you may want to connect it to a situation where you used Flexbox in a project that you built to be able to kind of give that practical use case. Okay. And then finally, extremely important, ignoring edge cases. You don't want to ignore the edge cases because again, that's a way to make your answer much more, much longer and much fuller. So like if someone asks you about a concept, you want to go ahead and be, well, these are the different use cases that I would use it in, and the different situation. But like, I think in this situation, it's probably going to be the best application of it. So this is what I mean. It's like being able to give the interviewer the different scenarios in which the concept can be used. So you're showing your critical thinking. Okay. And make sure to clarify if, again, you are not clear on what's happening. You don't want to be answering a question that you think is a question, but it's not. Okay. So always clarify a question. So that's for the Q&A. Then we have the behavioral, okay, which is around open-ended questions around your past experiences, your teamwork, your communication skills, any challenges that you face and how you handle them. Okay, so this is around understanding basically like how you think, how you handle stressful situations, how your past experiences have shaped you, etc., etc. So that can be, tell me a time you faced a challenge in a project. Tell me a time when you had a strict deadline and how you handled that, etc., etc. So this is not about, like getting the right answer. It's about how you're going to communicate your story. This is all about storytelling. Okay. And I'm going to show you a very good tip to make your story good. So for this one, if someone asks you, okay, like how, tell me about a project. And if you say, I worked on a team and we built a project. I mean, no one is going to say that. That's extremely vague. But let's imagine the worst case scenario. If you're going to say just that, you're not giving anything. You're not giving the role that you played in the project. You're not giving the responsibilities you had. You're not giving the outcome and the impact of that. Okay. So you want to be as, as descriptive, as specific as possible. And because it's a lot of information to throw at the interviewer, you need to be structured. Structure is the key for this one. If you're not structured and you go off tangents, you're going to lose the attention of the interviewer. And this is where we've got the STAR method coming in place. Okay. What is the STAR method? The STAR method stands for situation, task, action, and result. So instead of being vague, instead of rambling off topic, you can use the STAR method to help you structure your thoughts and to make sure that you are saying all the information that you should say. Okay. So S, situation, is basically the context, the background. So setting the stage with the context, what was the context of the situation? Tell me more about the type of project. Tell me more about the timings. Tell me more about, how many people were involved, etc., etc. That's your situation. Task is going to be what task you were given. What was your responsibility in the situation? Action is going to be what you did, the steps that you did, or the things that you did to basically make sure that the task was done effectively. And finally, result is the outcome or the impact of your your actions. So what was the impact of your actions? And usually you want to keep it obviously as a learning kind of outcome. Okay, if it's a challenge that you faced, what did you learn from it? If it's a successful story, what came out of it and why was it successful? That kind of information. Okay. In your response, when you are using the STAR method, you want to highlight teamwork and leadership. You want to highlight that you take initiative, that you work in a team, that you are collaborative, because that is massive aspects of being a software engineer or being in tech in general. Okay. Be honest and authentic. Don't make up stories. Don't make up something that didn't happen, because that's going to not serve you well. And it's okay to say, if something didn't happen, it's okay to say, well, I haven't faced that exact situation, but here's how I would handle it if it happened to me. Okay. So you can say that if you like didn't have a scenario. And then the last advice would be to practice key questions. So a lot of the times the behavioral questions are quite common, are quite similar. So you want to basically just practice, those common questions with yourself or with a friend, and using the STAR method. And then, even if those don't come up, at least you would have practiced the structure and you would be ready to like answer alternative questions that are like quite similar, but maybe worded a different way. Okay. And I'll just mention it quickly, but it's quite obvious. Do not badmouth previous employers. I've had people that I train say to me, oh, well, my manager was terrible and she did that and that. Listen, as the interviewer, they don't care about your drama. They don't care about what your manager did. Okay, so do not go into bad-mouthing previous employers or talking about the drama that happened and stuff like that. You can still obviously if it's part of the situation, you can talk about it, but maybe just, turn it into a way that's not, I don't know, degrading or bad-mouthing. Okay. So that's my advice on this. So let's look at the STAR method. How does that apply to a response? Let's say you have a question that's, tell me about a time you handle a tight deadline. Okay. Here is what a weak answer might be. Yeah, we had a project with a super tight deadline and it was really stressful. We originally had more time, but things changed last minute. So I just had to put in extra hours to get everything done. And it was so frustrating because requirements kept changing, yada, yada, yada. In the end, we met the deadline, but it was chaotic and I don't really know if it turned out well. Okay. What's wrong with this answer? Drop in the chat, words, comments. What is not good with this answer? Yeah, generic, wasn't specific. Yeah. Blaming others. Yeah. Not enough derails. Okay, great. So yeah, I mean, basically the main word here that I would have is not specific enough. I have no idea what project you worked on. I have no idea what task you had. I have no idea what the outcome was. I mean, if you say I don't really know how it turned out, you're not giving anything to the interviewer. And this could be applied. This is very generic because this could be said by anyone, right? I could say this about a project that I had, but I want to be more specific. So here's how the STAR method would be applied. Okay, so situation. In my previous role, our team had to launch a new product feature, but due to last minute changes, our timeline was cut from 2 weeks to 5 days. So here, it's more specific. I could be even more specific if I wanted to. But here, at least I'm saying what the situation was. I'm saying the timeline. So it was cut from 2 weeks to 5 days. And I could probably be more specific about the last minute changes. Okay. But at least I'm giving the context. I'm setting up the interviewer well. Then we have the task. I was responsible for ensuring the front-end implementation was completed on time while maintaining quality. So again, I'm giving my responsibility and what I was doing on the project. You could even be, you could be even more specific if you wanted. And then we have the action. I immediately broke down the task, I prioritized the most essential features, and I collaborated closely with the backend team to work in parallel. I also suggested daily check-ins to track progress and quickly resolve blockers. What's good about this? Well, first of all, you're showing the different steps that you took. Second, you're showing the initiative that you implemented something as part of the project, and you're showing collaboration, okay? And it's specific. It's much more specific than the other one. Result: we successfully launched on time with minimal bugs and received positive user feedback. My proactive planning helped improve communication across teams, which became a best practice for future projects. So here you are taking it to another level because you are showing that whatever you did in that project basically was implemented later on in the future. So you're showing this positive outcome and this positive impact that you had, and it's much more specific than the previous answer. So this is the kind of structure that you want to be following, okay? So that leaves us with scenario-based. And this one, it's, again, not about getting the right answer. It's about showing how you critically think, how you troubleshoot, how you make your decisions, how you think about the different edge cases, okay? If you get the question, how would you debug a slow API response in production? You're going to want to go step by step. You're going to want to assess the different things that may be happening and where you would look, okay? So this is all about, again, showing your reasoning, following a structure. What to do and what not to do. You don't want to give a theoretical answer, okay? So again, like, this is not a school exam. You don't want to think about it like, oh, I need to give a definition of a concept, and that's it. I want to apply it to a real situation and a real practical application of that. If someone asks you, how would you fix a button that doesn't work? You're not going to just say, well, I'll check the event listener. You want to go in more details. You want to say, the different steps that you would take to debug it. So you might say, I would check the browser console for errors. I'm going to make sure that the button isn't inside a disabled form. I'm going to verify that the JavaScript is correctly handling the event, etc., etc. So you want to break the problem down and you want to think aloud in your reasoning. Overcomplicating the response. This is something I've seen time and time again of people just throwing technical words at me to kind of prove that they know technical words and to prove their knowledge, but that's not going to help you. You want to keep it simple and structured and keep it to the practical scenario that was given to you. Okay, so, if I asked you, how would you center a div on a web page? And you say to me, well, I guess it's flexbox, grids, absolute positioning. Okay, great. I'm impressed that you know all of this. However, you're not telling me at all how you would use those. Okay, so you would say, all the different ways that you could use it. If I'm using Flexbox, I would probably apply this, and then I would apply this other thing. If I'm using CSS, I would go a different approach. Okay, so again, explain that out loud. And then the trade-offs. So this is for everything that I've said so far, and it's the same here. Make sure to explain the different trade-offs that could happen in a scenario, and don't just go with one solution thinking that's the right solution, because it's good to show that you have that variety, that breadth of knowledge for something. Okay, so that leaves us to practical strategies, which I think is going to be hopefully super helpful. So here's how you can prep efficiently for all of these formats, to be honest. First one is solving coding challenges. You want to go on LeetCode, HackerRank, CodeSignal, all of these platforms where there's a bunch of coding problems, and you want to do these as much as possible, okay? But that doesn't stop here. If you just do these problems and you don't do anything else, it's not going to prepare you well, because you are just with yourself thinking in your head. What you want to do is you want to simulate the conditions of an interview. So you want to time yourself to see how long you're taking. You want to think aloud. So practicing, talking about the pseudocode and talking about the different steps so that you can build your communication skills. And you can do that with someone in front of you, or you can, again, do it with yourself, record yourself and listen to yourself and give you feedback. So that's the idea. don't just solve the problem, practice as if you are doing it with someone. Doing mock interviews. So I do this a lot with my students. Mock interviews are basically simulations of a real interview. So we're going to essentially pretend I'm the employer and I'm doing the interview to you. So again, with the same conditions that you would have in a normal interview. And, you know, that's going to massively help you. So the way you can do this is find a partner, whether it's a friend, a mentor, or someone in a study group, and do a mock interview with them. If you don't have a partner or a friend or someone that you can do it with, you can do it with yourself and record yourself, or you can find platforms specifically for this. So for example, there's a lot of websites out there for, mock interviewing for, like, for example, Premp interviewing.io. I can share those afterwards. But these can allow you to practice with real people. And then the biggest thing, obviously, about this is to treat it like it's the real thing. Okay. Like you really want to treat it like you have the interviewer in front of you, even though it's like, your partner or like a friend and you want to laugh so hard, but you really want to kind of get it seriously. The third tip is to prepare strong star stories. What does that mean? So you want to identify 4, maybe 5 key experiences that you've gone through, whether the challenges or successes, that you think highlight your teamwork, your communication, all of that. And once you've identified them, you're going to take a notebook and you're going to write down each of these. You're going to tell these experiences using the STAR method. So you're going to write down each of these experiences using the STAR method. Do not practice out loud yet. Just write it down. Once you've written it down, you want to practice out loud, record yourself, and see, how that comes through. The reason why this is good is because obviously it's going to help you practice the STAR method and like the talking part. But also, when you go into the interview, no matter the question they're going to ask, you should be able to take all these 4 or 5 experiences that you've identified beforehand and apply them to whatever question. Okay. So it's like that ability to adapt, like your preparation to the question that is asked of you. This, I've said it already, so I'm not going to go through it, but recording yourself is a massive help because it's going to help you refine the way you talk and you're going to catch bad habits. Okay. So extremely important to do that, even if some people don't like recording themselves and hearing themselves back. Study by teaching. You want to be a teacher. You want to pretend that you are teaching a concept to someone, again, to a friend, to a partner. You want to use a whiteboard maybe, or like something to draw out, draw out the concept so it can help you explain and illustrate what you're saying. And that's something that you could do in an interview that will be very well seen if you can kind of really like take that teaching like hat, right? And like that's something, honestly, I really recommend to do that because, like I said, it's only when I became a teacher and I was teaching concept that I truly understood what I was talking about. And then finally, building small projects. So this is something that you should do anyway to like, get into tech. However, in this context, I'm saying this because if you build a small projects, you're going to have examples to talk about in your interviews. If they ask you a behavioral or scenario-based question, you can relate it to an actual practical application of it because you built it, right? So that's the first really reason why building small projects is going to help you. And then it might help you with like interview questions, like technical questions. If someone asks you about an API, you can give the definition and then you can be like, actually I built an API and this is how the API was and was structured. So that way you can really relate it to an example. So that's my advice, like build common small projects that you can then use in your interview. So I'm just looking at the time. I'm really sorry. I speak a lot. Probably half of the people have left now, but I just want to finish off with quickly the mindset that I was talking about earlier. So like you say all these thoughts to yourself, but what you really should do is shift it to these positive, kind of more empowering statements. Okay. And these are not false statements, by the way. This is not false positivity. This is like about actually being real with yourself and real with the market and, how things are. If you say like, you know, uh, technical interviews are tests and I have to prove myself. Well, yeah, you do have to prove yourself a little bit, but also just don't put that pressure on yourself, Go in there thinking this is going to be a conversation. I'm here to collaborate. I'm here to show how I approach problems. And if the person in front of me like is not satisfied with that, well, okay, great. That's okay. That might be that I'm not the right fit for this. Okay. So this is all about yeah, like shifting your mindset to things that are a bit more empowering for yourself, because a lot of the times what you say to yourself isn't the reality and isn't the truth. So for that reason, I wanted to give you these techniques to kind of handle the three different things that you might face in interviews. So like handling mistakes. If you make a mistake, you don't want to panic. You don't want to ignore the mistake. You want to acknowledge it and adapt. Okay. So, like, acknowledge that you've made a mistake, correct it, and then move forward. Or ask the interviewer, okay, I think I'm going wrong here. Could you help me? Could you guide me in where I should go? Okay. Use clarifying questions as a way to make sure that you prevent making mistakes. And most importantly, if you make a bad answer, don't just be like, that's it, I'm done. Like, you know, this is not going well. Because each question is going to be like different. And it's not because you failed one question that, the whole interview is scraped. Okay. So that's very important to remember. Managing stress. So, the biggest thing I can say here is I've been successful in interviews where I didn't really care about the job or I wasn't really excited about the job. And the reason being that I don't put the pressure on myself. Whereas if, I go into a job that I really care about, I put this entire pressure on myself and then I end up not doing good. So really, you want to go into every single interview, whether you care or not, you want to go into it with this mindset of like, this is a conversation. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I cannot control everything. Okay. I can control how I pace myself. I can control how I communicate. I'm not going to be able to control how the person thinks of me or how the person conducts the interview. Okay. So you really want to go in there. Okay, let's do it. Like, let's give my best. And then I'm going to reflect back afterwards. The reflection is very important. What I do after every interview is I write down what went well, what didn't go well, so that I can take that into my next interview. If you don't reflect on your interviews, you're just going to end up making the same mistakes over and over again. Okay. Finally, to all the women in there who have seen job interviews and they thought I need to basically uh, have all the requirements filled. No, okay? Job descriptions are not wish lists. If you meet 60, 70% of the criteria, it's enough. My first entry-level job, I didn't even meet 40% of the criteria and I still got the job, okay? It doesn't matter. And I didn't apply for a lot of jobs because I didn't have 100% of the criteria, and that's a mistake. It's not a tick boxing exercise. So you really want to go for it, okay? Because you never know. And obviously leverage your strength. Even if you don't tick all the boxes, there's probably a lot of things that you have that the other candidates might not have. So you want to put that forward in your interview. Okay, there's a lot to take in. So what I'm gonna do is, thank you for, there's still a lot of people. Thank you for staying. So I want to end with this quote. Confidence grows when you shift your mindset from fear of failure to opportunities for growth. Take every interview as a learning experience. If you are rejected, that's okay. It was probably not the right fit for you, or you probably not prepared enough, and that's okay. Take it as an opportunity to grow, to be better in the next interview. Okay. That's why I say to all of my students who think they failed, it's never about failure. It's about, okay, great, that's fine. How am I going to be better next time? Okay. How am I going to improve? And how am I going to enjoy it? You should enjoy your interviews most of the time. I had an interview recently that I did not enjoy, but most of the interviews I've done, in the past few years, I've actually enjoyed them. I've actually enjoyed talking to the person, and that's because I came in with the idea of like, oh, I'm just going to be myself, and I'm just going to talk to this person as if I'm talking to my coworker. Okay, so that's what I want to end on. And I know there's stuff in the chat, but if you have questions, like right off the bat. Okay, we have a question. Okay, Ali, could you please explain how I should structure my CV to increase my chances of getting a job offer? So, depends on where you are in your career. If you are already, kind of you've been in work for a while, I would say you want to highlight in your CV like your work experience. Your education should come like at the bottom and should come, as a second thing to think about. Your work experience should be the highlight of your CV, and you want to be able to structure it so that if you're applying for, I don't know, a front end role, you want to make sure you have, the careers that apply or like the experience that applies to that, like first and foremost in your resume. Okay. That's my biggest advice, because a lot of people will put their education first and then the work experience, which means that actually it gets kind of skipped. In terms of your work experience, you want to keep it short for the bullet points, and you want to keep it, with the same like format. So like, you want to start with like action verbs and then keep that for all of them. Okay. And then the third thing I would say is your layout. I think the layout of your CV matters a lot. If a CV is like full of text and it's not easily readable or easy to navigate, that's not going to be great for the person like looking at it. So you want to make it you want to make a layout that is kind of simple, structured, potentially have a nice design in there so that it's not just like black and white. I mean, that's what I've been doing because I just think it's nicer for someone to look at something that is nicely laid out. No worries. Any other questions? I don't know if I missed something in there.
There are some questions in there.
Nice. Yeah,
There is,
I saw.
yeah. Oh, yeah. You can start.
And you're sure you can't. Sorry, this makes me laugh. I mean, listen, like, I think the faking it is something I've done in the past, but like you can't take it to the extreme. Like if someone asks you, oh, have you done SQL before? And you say yes, and you've never done SQL. I'm sorry, but that is not great. Like, because you're going to end up probably in a situation where you're being given something that you actually cannot do. And yes, you can learn it. You can definitely learn it on the job, but you want to be open about this. You might want to say, well, actually, no, I haven't done SQL. However, I am planning to learn it. And, I have learned a lot of technologies in the past very fast. And so I can definitely adapt and learn, very quickly on this technology. So like that way you're being honest, you're showing your like keenness to like learn, and you're not being dishonest. When I think fake it till you make it approach works is, when you you fake your confidence. A lot of people like will tell me, oh, Sarah, you're so confident. Like, how do you do it? I'm not. Like, God, I have the most irrational thoughts in my mind all the time. I put myself down all the time. I am not the most confident person at all. However, I am good at faking it, at faking that I'm confident, that I know what I'm doing, that I'm keen to learn. The reason being is that when you go into a job and you can show that confidence, people will be like, you know, like helping you, and they will be supporting you. If you can ask questions, if you can be open and all of that, that is going to be much better than just kind of like, like being a bit, shut down and silent and all of that. So my approach to this is, like fake it around maybe like the way you are, the way you approach things. And then you're going to slowly become that. Okay, I've become more confident as a result. I'm not quite there yet, but I've become more confident. But I wouldn't fake it in terms of what you can do, like practically, you know. Don't say you speak Spanish if you don't speak Spanish. So that's my advice. What strategies do you suggest for approaching system design questions, particularly when asked to design a system you haven't encountered before? So, I mean, I think for system design questions, you first want to make sure that you can, because a lot of these questions will require you to sometimes draw out the system. So you want to make sure that you kind of know the tools, the way you would, the kind of best practices in terms of building a system design diagram, things like that. That's the first thing I would suggest. And then I would just do a bunch of like practice, just like the live coding, where you do like you practice a lot of coding questions. You want to essentially do the same for system design. Like there's a lot of system design practice questions out there, and you want to just do these as much as possible. And again, like draw out how you would approach it, talk through it, record yourself. And in terms of talking through it, you want to expand obviously your approach out loud, but you want to also consider the edge cases, like here are different ways I would do it, but here's the approach I would take because of X and Y. If it's a system you haven't encountered before, this is where you have to be honest. This is where you have to be like, oh, like I actually haven't encountered this before. Could you explain further, like what would be the requirements here, like what would be the challenges? So you want to ask clarifying question and maybe take it more as a collaborative aspect, and that would be my advice for this one. Yes, I mean, yes, yeah. If I was a CEO and I was interviewing each of you, I don't really care how much you know. I care about if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to grow in the company, and you have that curiosity. If you have that curiosity and that willingness to like learn, then I'm going to take you over any like high level computer science degree for sure. So like that's a really good advice to kind of remember. Any other questions?
I think we're done with the
Yeah,
questions. Oh, yeah. Sonali is
no
saying thank
worries.
you. I made her words mine. Thank you very much, Sarah. That was awesome. As a last thing, would you mind sharing like how we contact you for mentoring sessions or what's the best?
Yeah, well, I think like my LinkedIn is probably the best place to contact me. I'm also obviously part of Frontend Queens, so if you're part of Frontend Queens, you can contact me on Slack as part of that. But yeah, I do give a lot of tutoring sessions, whether it's technical or like more like prepping for interviews. So if you are interested in that, just contact me on LinkedIn. I'll just pop up my LinkedIn in there quickly. And then, message me and I'm happy to do a coffee chat with you, anything that you may want. If you want to vent about an interview, we can do that too. And I can tell you about all the experiences I've had. But yeah, this is my LinkedIn right here. So I'll just pop it in the chat if you wanted to contact me. And yeah, that's it really.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Well, loved it. It's too bad that we have to wrap up because
I know I could,
I
yeah.
could ask a lot of questions more, but